The archive chamber was cold and quiet as Teo moved between the endless rows of stone shelves. The lights above him glowed faintly blue, casting long shadows across the ancient storage containers. He had been working here for 20 years, but today felt different. Today, he could feel something important waiting for him in the darkness. Teo was an archivist, one of the few beings in the galaxy who still studied the Precursor age. Most species had moved on, forgotten about the civilization that had ruled the stars thousands of years before. The Precursors were gone, lost to time and mystery. Their great machines had stopped working long ago. Their cities were empty. Nobody cared about them anymore. But Teo cared. He believed that the past held answers to many questions about the present. He reached the section where his team had been working for the past 3 months. The old storage unit was carved from black stone and covered in symbols that nobody could read anymore. His colleague, Dr. HFY, had discovered it buried deep beneath the largest archive building on the planet Keeper 7. It had taken them weeks just to understand how to open it safely. Today was the day they would finally see what was inside. Teo placed his hand on the activation panel. The stone around him started to hum with energy. It was a sound he had only heard in old recordings, a sound that meant ancient machines were waking up after thousands of years of sleep. The panel began to glow, first with a soft white light, then growing brighter. The humming became louder, and Teo felt it vibrate through his entire body. Then suddenly, everything went quiet. A single data crystal emerged from the stone, glowing with inner light. It was small enough to fit in the palm of his hand, but Teo could feel the power contained within it. This crystal held information, a lot of information. More information than most civilizations created in 100 years. Dr. HFY rushed into the chamber, her eyes wide with excitement. She was a younger scientist, brilliant and curious about everything related to the ancient past. She had been waiting in the next room, monitoring the equipment as Teo performed the opening ceremony. "You did it," she said, moving quickly toward him. "Did it work? Is the data still there?" "I think so," Teo replied, holding the crystal carefully. "Feel how warm it is. The preservation systems must have kept it safe all this time." Together, they carried the crystal to the main computer terminal. The terminal was not old like the crystal. This machine was only 100 years old, made with modern technology. But it was powerful enough to read data from ancient times. Teo inserted the crystal slowly and stepped back. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the screen flickered. Text began to appear, line after line, scrolling across the display too fast to read. Numbers, symbols, and strange writing filled the air around them. The computer was translating the data into a language they could understand. Finally, the scrolling stopped. What they saw made them both stop breathing. The document was titled, "The Final War Records of the Precursor Collective." The date was listed as 10,000 years ago. But what shocked them more than anything was the next line. "Report of the combined forces against enemy species. HFY. HFY looked at Teo with confusion. HFY? What is that? I have never heard of this species before." They read further, scrolling through the documents carefully. What they discovered was impossible. The record spoke of a war, a massive war that had involved not just the Precursors, but 47 different civilizations united together as one force. And they were all fighting against a single enemy. One species, an enemy so dangerous that nearly half of all known civilizations had needed to combine their power to defeat it. "This cannot be real," HFY whispered. "The Precursors never faced a real challenge. Everyone knows this. They were the strongest civilization ever known. Nothing could fight them." But Teo kept reading. The logs described battles. Entire star systems burned to nothing. Planets destroyed. The combined military might of the Precursor Collective used terrible weapons that could kill 1 billion beings in a single moment. And yet, The strange part kept appearing again and again in the records. The enemy did not die. No matter how many times the precursors believed they had won, the enemy appeared again. One section made Teo's hands shake as he held the crystal. It was a message from a precursor commander named Vortak, dated 200 days before the collective suddenly disappeared from history. The message read, "We have destroyed 300 worlds where this species lived. The populations should be completely gone. Our scanners show no life in 17 sectors. And yet, ships bearing their mark have been observed twice this month. How can they still exist? What are they? How do they keep coming back?" The final entry in the logs was different. It was not written in the usual military language. It sounded like fear. "If you find this message after we are gone, remember this. There is one species that the Precursor Collective could not destroy. One species that refused to accept extinction. We do not know what they are. We do not know where they come from. But we know this. They will not die. This species will return. They have the will to survive that no power in the galaxy can match. The species is called humanity. Be warned." Teo and Hei-Wan stood in silence for a long time. Neither of them knew what to say. The records they had just discovered would change everything. They had found proof of a civilization that had existed 10,000 years ago. A civilization so strong that it had forced the greatest power the galaxy had ever known to unite against it. A civilization that refused to die. Hei-Wan looked at Teo with determination in her eyes. "We have to tell the leaders. We have to tell them what we found. The galaxy needs to know this." Teo nodded slowly. He was already thinking about what would happen next. If there really was a species called humanity, if they really did refuse to die, then somewhere out in the vast darkness of space, they might still exist. They might be waiting. They might be watching. The question that filled his mind as he looked at the glowing data crystal was simple but terrifying. What would the galaxy do when humanity finally woke up? The message reached Commander Q Jin while he was sitting in his office aboard the Valorian flagship. He was a tall being with silver skin and 4 arms typical of his species. Q Jin was the leader of the Valorian fleet, the most powerful military force in this region of space. For 15 years he had served his people with honor and wisdom. He believed in peace, but he also understood that strength was necessary to keep peace. When he received the signal from Teo and Hei-Wan, he thought it was a joke at first. A dead species, a civilization that the precursors had tried to destroy but could not. Nobody had challenged the precursors successfully. That was known fact. That was history. It was written in every school and every library. The precursors had been unbeatable until they simply disappeared. Nobody knew why they vanished, but nobody had ever defeated them in battle. Yet the data was real. Kyujin read the war logs carefully, studying every detail. He had his scientists check the information 3 times to make sure it was genuine. The crystal was definitely ancient. The information inside was definitely from 10,000 years ago. And the story it told was both fascinating and frightening. Kyujin made a decision. He would send his best exploration team to the location that the war logs mentioned. The coordinates pointed to a region of space called the Kepler Expanse. This area was mostly empty. There were no living civilizations there, no planets with life, no stations or bases, just empty space and dead rocks. But the logs spoke of hidden structures in this region, structures that the precursors had tried to destroy. Structures that might still exist. The team was small. Kyujin did not want to send an army. If there really was something there, he wanted to learn about it first before telling the rest of the galaxy. He chose Dr. Hei-Wan to lead the scientific team. She had already discovered the war logs, so she understood what they were looking for. He also chose Dae-Jung, his best combat specialist, to protect the group if anything went wrong. Finally, he added 10 other experienced soldiers and scientists to the team. The journey to the Kepler expanse took 3 weeks of travel through space. The ship was fast, but space was very large. As they got closer to the coordinates, the sensors started picking up strange signals. It was nothing strong or obvious, just very faint signals that did not match any known technology patterns. "There is something here," HFY said, looking at her instrument screens. "But it is old. Very old. Most of the systems are shut down or in sleep mode. Whatever is here has been dormant for thousands of years." As they moved even closer, something remarkable happened. The signals grew stronger. It was like watching something wake up after sleeping for a very long time. The computers on the exploration ship began receiving new signals from somewhere in the space ahead. These signals were not random. They were organized. They had patterns. They were trying to communicate. "Turn on all cameras," Kyujin ordered from the observation deck. "I want to see everything." The main screen lit up with images from the cameras, and there it was, a structure, massive and impossible. It seemed to grow out of space itself, hidden behind layers of older technology that was designed to keep it hidden. As they watched, the external armor of the structure fell away like dust. Doors that had been closed for 10,000 years began to open with a slow, grinding sound. The structure was a building. No, it was more than a building. It was a facility. It stretched for over a kilometer in every direction. Its walls glowed with soft blue light. Inside, HFY's instruments showed incredible technology. Machines that were still running. Equipment that was still functional. Power systems that were still producing energy even after 10,000 years of isolation. "What is this place?" one of the younger scientists asked over the communication system. "A warning," Dae-jung said quietly. "Look at the design. Look at the structure. This is a military facility. Or maybe a hiding place. Someone built this to preserve something, to keep something safe." Kyujin made the decision to send down a landing team. The ship approached the main entrance to the facility. The huge doors continued to open, revealing a vast chamber inside. The team put on protective suits and walked into the darkness. What they found inside was beyond their imagination. The chamber was enormous. The ceiling was so high that they could not see it with their lights, and lining every wall, stretching from floor to ceiling, were thousands of containers. Metal boxes with glass windows, and inside each container they could see a shape that looked almost familiar. A shape that looked almost like a living being. "Life support systems," HFY said, moving her scanner across one of the containers. "These are occupied. There is something alive in each one of these. Or at least there was something alive. The organisms are in some kind of stasis. They have been preserved, frozen in time." Dae-jung moved to a large stone pillar in the center of the chamber. Carved into it were symbols and text. Many of the symbols matched the ones from the war logs. Dae-jung activated his translation device. The symbols became words in his language. "Archive of Humanity," Dae-jung read aloud. "Preservation Database 7. Authorized personnel only." The team looked at each other. They had found it. They had found the place where the Precursor war logs had warned them about. They had found the archive, the place where this mysterious species called humanity had hidden themselves away to survive extinction. Then something happened that made everyone alert. A voice filled the chamber. It was a recorded voice, but it sounded alive. It sounded like a person speaking. The voice was female and strong. She spoke in an old language, but the translation device converted it to words they could understand. "If you are hearing this message, it means the Precursor Collective has fallen. The war is over. We hid ourselves here because we learned that the only way to truly survive extinction is to be impossible to find and impossible to completely destroy." We put ourselves to sleep. Thousands of us scattered across many different hiding places, waiting for the day when it would be safe to wake up again. We are humanity. We fought against the greatest power in the galaxy. And though we were forced to hide, we never truly lost. Our will to survive is stronger than any weapon. If you are hearing this, and you are not our enemy, then you are receiving this message because you can be trusted. You can be trusted to help us wake up again. You can be trusted to help us return to the stars. We will return. That is not a question. That is a promise. HFY looked at Kyujin through the transparent face shield of her protective suit. In her eyes, he could see the same thing he was feeling. Wonder mixed with fear, and the knowledge that the galaxy was about to change forever. Dr. HFY reached out and placed her hand on the activation console next to the closest stasis container. She looked at Kyujin and nodded. Then she pushed a single button. Throughout the entire chamber, ancient machines began to hum. Lights flickered to life. The revival systems, dormant for 10,000 years, started to wake up. And inside every stasis container, something began to move. Minho felt cold. His entire body felt frozen, as if he had been buried in ice for 1,000 years. His eyes were closed, but they felt heavy, as if they weighed 1,000 pounds each. He could not move his arms or legs. He could not even open his mouth to speak. He was trapped in his own body, aware but unable to do anything. Then slowly, feeling began to return. His fingers twitched. His toes moved. His eyes felt lighter. The cold began to fade, replaced by warmth. Warmth that came from outside his body, from machines that were pumping heated liquid into his veins. His lungs felt dry. They burned as he took his first breath in 10,000 years. His eyes opened. The world was blurry. Shapes and colors moved above him. Bright lights hurt his vision. Slowly, his eyes began to focus. He saw a transparent ceiling above him. He saw machines and tubes connected to his body. He was in a stasis pod, a revival pod, the kind that his military training had taught him about, though he had never expected to actually experience it. Minho tried to move. His arms did not respond at first. His legs felt like they did not belong to him, but the machines knew what to do. They had been programmed 10,000 years ago to guide his body through the revival process. His muscles received electrical stimulation. His body temperature rose. His heart began to beat faster, pumping blood through his veins, bringing oxygen to his brain and organs. Finally, after what felt like hours but was only minutes, the pod opened. A cloud of cool air surrounded Minho as he stumbled out, his legs barely able to support his weight. He fell to the ground, gasping for breath, his entire body shaking with the effort of moving after such a long sleep. A hand reached down to help him. Minho looked up. He saw a being that was not human. The being had silver skin and 4 arms. It was a Valorian. Minho had studied many alien species in his military training, but seeing one in person was different. The Valorian looked at him with concern. "Can you hear me?" the Valorian asked. "My name is Dai Jung. I am a combat specialist. You are safe now. You have been in stasis for a long time. You need to rest and recover." Minho tried to speak, but his voice came out as a weak whisper. "How long?" he managed to ask. 10,000 years, Daejung said. "The precursors are gone. The war is over. You are waking up in a different galaxy than the one you knew." All around Minho, the revival pods continued to open. Other humans were waking up. Some of them could barely stand. Others were crying. Many seemed confused about where they were and what had happened to them. But they all had one thing in common. They were alive. After 10,000 years of sleep, they were alive. Dr. HFY moved between the rising humans, checking their vital signs with her scanner. She had never seen these beings before in her entire life. But she knew from the records that humans were supposed to be strong and adaptable. Their genetic code had been modified over many generations to help them survive in space and in battle. Even after 10,000 years, their bodies seemed to remember how to wake up properly. By the end of the first day, nearly 200 humans had been revived. They were given water and food. They were given clean clothes. They were given medical treatment for their bodies to recover from the long stasis. And gradually, as their minds cleared and their strength returned, they began to ask questions. Captain Raymond was the last to wake. She had been placed in the most advanced stasis pod, the one reserved for the highest officers and the most important people. When she opened her eyes, she already seemed alert and aware. She moved smoothly out of her pod as if she was simply waking from a normal night's sleep, not from 10,000 years of unconsciousness. Q-Jin was in the chamber when Raymond first stood up. He watched as this human female surveyed the area around her. Her eyes moved from the revival pods to the machines, to the other humans who were still recovering. Her eyes were sharp and intelligent. She seemed to understand everything at a glance. Raymond looked at Q-Jin and the other Valorians. She seemed confused for only a moment. Then she straightened up, and her face became calm and professional. "I am Captain Raymond of the Human Defense Force," she said, her voice strong and clear. "I appear to have been in cryostasis. The last memory I have is entering the sleep chamber before the final evacuation, before we activated the archiaves to hide from the precursors." She paused, studying Q-Jin carefully. "You are not a precursor. What species are you?" "I am Valorian," Q-Jin replied. "I am Commander Q-Jin of the Valorian fleet. The Precursor Collective disappeared 10,000 years ago. We did not destroy them. They simply vanished from the galaxy. We found your archive by accident. We found the war logs that explained what happened during the ancient conflict. We came here to learn more." Captain Raymond was silent for a long moment. She seemed to be processing this information, accepting the reality that everything she knew was gone. Her world was gone. Her people were gone. Her entire civilization had been erased. But she and those around her had been preserved. They had survived. "What is the current state of the galaxy?" Raymond asked. Q-Jin explained. He told her about the 7 major powers that now controlled known space. He explained that humans were not known to exist in the modern galaxy. He told her about the technology that was currently in use. He explained that the precursor technology was considered ancient and powerful, but that modern civilizations had created their own advanced weapons and tools. When Q-Jin finished speaking, Raymond smiled. It was a small smile, but it was confident. "Then we have much to learn," she said. "And the galaxy has much to learn about us. We have been hidden away for 10,000 years. We have been preserved in a state of readiness. Every human in this chamber was selected for revival because they possess special abilities or knowledge. We are soldiers, scientists, engineers, and leaders. We were trained to survive and to adapt. 10,000 years of stasis has not changed that. If this galaxy is divided into 7 major powers, then we need to understand who those powers are and what they want. We need to rebuild our civilization. But we also need to understand this new world we find ourselves in." She turned to address all the humans around her, her voice loud and clear. "Listen to me. I know you are confused. I know you are afraid. I know this world is strange and different from everything you remember. But we have survived extinction. We have been hidden in the darkness, and now we have woken. What we do now will determine whether we survive in this new galaxy or whether we fade away forever. We will work with these Valorians who have found us. We will learn about this galaxy, and when we are ready, we will take our place among the stars once again. We are human. We do not surrender. We do not give up, and we do not remain forgotten." The humans around her stood straighter. Their fear began to fade. They understood. They were alive. They had a purpose. They had survived the unsurvivable, and now it was time to show the galaxy what humanity was truly made of. 3 months had passed since the first humans woke up. The adaptation process was faster than anyone expected. The humans had learned the modern languages quickly. They had studied the current military technology. They had studied the politics of the 7 major galactic powers, and they had become allies to the Valorian collective. It was during a routine sensor sweep that the first warning came. Captain Raymond was in the Tactical Command Center with Commander Q-Jin when the alarms started to sound. Across the communication channels, urgent voices began to call for help. Deep space sensor stations were reporting contacts, large contacts, military contacts, ships that were moving toward inhabited space with clear, hostile intent. The sensor data showed something that made every officer in the command center freeze. The ships that were approaching carried technology signatures from the Precursor age. But they were not Precursor ships. They belonged to a different species, a species that had been recorded in the war logs as the Karos insurgency. Q-Jin pulled up the old records from the war logs. The information was clear and terrifying. The Karos had been enemies of the Precursors for thousands of years. They were a warrior species, known for their brutal tactics and their refusal to surrender. The Precursors had nearly destroyed them during the final war, along with the conflict against humanity. But apparently, the Karos had also discovered stasis technology. They had also hidden themselves away, and now, like humanity, they were waking up. "How many ships?" Raymond asked, looking at the tactical display. "Currently detected, over 1,000 capital ships," the sensor officer replied. "And that is just what our scanners can pick up. There are likely many more smaller vessels. Combined with the military forces already in the territory, the Karos fleet represents the single largest military threat the galaxy has faced in recorded history." Raymond looked at Q-Jin. His expression was grim. This was not good news. This was a catastrophe. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was called within hours. Representatives from all 7 major powers arrived at the Valorian station. Some came in person. Others attended through communication channels. Raymond watched them carefully as they studied the sensor data that showed the approaching Karos fleet. The response was mixed. Some powers wanted to negotiate. Others wanted to form an immediate alliance to fight the threat. A few wanted to attempt a preemptive strike before the Karos could reach inhabited space. The debate went on for hours, with no clear consensus. Finally, Raymond asked to speak. The council leaders turned their attention to her. She stood and began to address them in a calm, professional voice. "The Karos insurgency is not new to war," she said. "According to the records we found, they have been fighting against impossible odds for thousands of years. They have faced the Precursor Collective and survived. They have technology that is advanced and proven in real combat. They will not be easy to defeat. But here is what is important for you to understand. We have faced them before. My people fought against the Precursors while they were also fighting the Karos. We learned their tactics. We studied their behavior. We know how they think." One of the council leaders, a being from the Stellar Compact, spoke up. "You are suggesting that we should use human military knowledge to help us fight this threat?" "I am not suggesting anything," Raymond replied. "I am stating a fact. The Karos will be here in 2 weeks. You can spend that time arguing about who should be in charge of the defense, or you can accept help from those of us who have already fought this battle. My people and I are willing to fight alongside you. We ask only one thing in return." "And what is that?" the council leader asked. "Recognition," Raymond said. "Recognition that humanity exists. Recognition that we are a part of this galaxy. Recognition that we have earned the right to be here, not through conquest, but through survival and resilience." The council agreed. The alliance was formed. For the first time in 10,000 years, humanity had official status in the galactic community. They were no longer a legend. They were not simply an ancient enemy that had vanished. They were a real civilization with real people and real power. But as the council leaders dispersed to return to their territories, something else was happening in the depths of space. Hidden sensors were detecting something that nobody on the council knew about yet. Dr. HFY discovered it first. She was reviewing the deep space scan data when she noticed an anomaly. There were more Karos ships than the sensors had originally detected. Many more. The ships were cloaked using technology that was far more advanced than anything the Karos were known to possess. Only the most sensitive instruments could detect them, and only if you knew where to look. When she brought this information to Raymond, the human captain's face became very serious. "How many?" Raymond asked. "At least 5,000 additional ships," HFY replied. "Maybe more. They are hidden in the asteroid fields. It looks like they are preparing for a surprise attack. They want the Council to think they only face 1,000 ships. Then, when the battle starts, the hidden fleet will emerge and attack from behind." Raymond immediately brought this information to Q-Jin. Together, they began to formulate a new strategy. If the Karos were planning a surprise attack, then the humans and the Valorians would prepare a surprise of their own. Over the next 2 weeks, the human soldiers worked with the Valorian military forces to prepare for battle. The defense grids were repositioned. Battle plans were created and refined. Every piece of information from the war logs was studied and applied to create a defense that could withstand not just the visible Karos fleet, but also the hidden one. Min-Ho trained his squadron of fighter pilots. They drilled for hours every day, practicing maneuvers and combat scenarios. The pilots were a mix of human and Valorian, and they worked together with impressive coordination. Min-Ho was proud of them. They were ready for whatever was coming. But as the day of the battle approached, Raymond found herself thinking about the Precursor war logs. She thought about the final message from that ancient commander, the one who had warned that humanity would return. She thought about what it meant to wake up from a 10,000-year sleep to face a new threat. She thought about the responsibility that came with being the last surviving humans in the galaxy. 2 days before the Karos were predicted to arrive, Raymond stood alone in the command center, looking at the star map displayed in the air before her. The location where the battle would take place was already chosen, the Kepler Expanse, where the archive had been found. It was fitting, Raymond thought. It was fitting that the place where humanity had been reborn would also be the place where they proved they had not lost their strength. She placed her hand on the communication console and opened a channel to all human military personnel. "This is Captain Raymond," she said, her voice strong and clear. "In 2 days we will face the Karos insurgency. I will not lie to you. The battle will be difficult. Some of us may not survive. But I want you to remember something important. We have already faced extinction once. We have already been defeated by the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. And we survived. We came back. We are here now because our ancestors refused to accept death. Now we must honor that legacy. We must show this galaxy that humanity is not a species that gives up. We are a species that fights. We are a species that endures. We are a species that never remains dead. Are you with me?" The response came back across all channels. From soldiers and pilots and engineers scattered across multiple ships and stations. "We are with you, Captain. We will fight." Raymond closed the communication channel and turned back to the star map. The enemy was coming. The battle was approaching. And humanity was ready to prove once again why they were a species that even the Precursors had feared. The Kepler Expanse was about to become a war zone. Min-Ho sat in his fighter cockpit, staring at the tactical display that showed the approaching Karos fleet. He had trained for this moment for 3 months, ever since waking up in the stasis pod. Around him, his squadron of 12 fighter pilots waited for the signal to launch. Outside his viewport, he could see the main Valorian battle cruiser, the massive ship that would serve as the command center for the entire coalition force. His communications headset crackled with the voice of Captain Ray Min. She was aboard the Perseverance, humanity's only major capital ship, which had been restored and upgraded over the past 3 months. Her voice was calm and steady, the voice of a commander who had prepared for this moment. "All units, this is Captain Ray Min. The Karos fleet will enter weapons range in 60 seconds. Hold your positions. Remember your training. Remember what we are fighting for. For humanity, for the Valorian collective, for every being in this galaxy who believes that freedom is worth defending." The countdown reached 0. Suddenly, the vast darkness of space erupted into chaos. The Karos ships came out of hyperspace with weapons blazing. Hundreds of ships appeared at once, their energy weapons cutting through the void like lightning. The first defense grid absorbed the initial barrage, and several Karos vessels exploded in secondary detonations as the automated defense systems fired back. "Launch all fighters!" the order came through Minho's headset. Minho pushed the throttle forward. His fighter accelerated from the launch bay, shooting out into open space. Around him, dozens of other human and Valorian fighters launched as well. Within seconds, the space around the Kepler expanse was filled with hundreds of small combat vessels moving at incredible speeds. Minho locked onto his first target. A Karos fighter was turning to attack one of the Valorian scouts. Minho fired a missile. The Karos pilot was experienced and managed to dodge, but the sudden threat forced him to break off his attack on the scout. Minho followed the Karos fighter, matching its movements perfectly. He had been trained in flight combat before his stasis. 10,000 years of sleep had not taken away his skills. His hands moved across the controls with automatic precision, muscle memory guiding every movement. Below them, massive capital ships were engaging each other. The Valorian battlecruiser exchanged fire with 2 Karos dreadnoughts. The shields on both sides flared bright with energy. The battle was happening on 2 fronts. Small fighters dueling in the upper atmosphere, and huge capital ships firing weapons that could destroy an entire station with a single blast. Dr. He Wan was in the tactical command center aboard the Perseverance, monitoring everything that was happening. Holographic displays showed the positions of every ship, every weapon, every tactical advantage and disadvantage. She watched as the human soldiers coordinated with the Valorian forces with remarkable efficiency. The combination of Valorian strength and human tactical knowledge was working better than anyone expected. But then, the sensors detected something new. A massive signal appeared on the tactical display, growing larger as it approached. It was the Karos flagship, the ship that had been hidden behind gravitational camouflage the entire time. It emerged from the darkness like a monster from a nightmare. A warship that was easily twice the size of any other vessel in the battle. Raymond studied the new information calmly. She recognized the design. It was similar to the flagships described in the war logs. It was a Precursor warship, captured and modified by the Karos thousands of years ago. The weapon systems on that ship alone could turn the tide of the entire battle. The Karos flagship opened fire, and space itself seemed to shatter. The weapon it used was not a conventional energy weapon. It was something far more dangerous. A gravitic disruption weapon that tore apart the molecular bonds of matter itself. 3 Valorian cruisers were vaporized instantly, each ship containing thousands of crew members. Thousands of lives, erased in a single moment. Raymond looked at her weapons officer. "Can we strike that flagship?" "Negative, Captain," the officer replied. "It is too far away. Our weapons are not powerful enough to reach it, and its shields are too strong for our conventional missiles." Raymond thought for a moment. Then she understood what had to be done. It was the same choice that every military leader in history had faced at the moment of ultimate crisis. It was the choice between accepting defeat or making the ultimate sacrifice. She opened a channel to all coalition forces. "All units, listen carefully. I am about to do something that you have not been trained for. I am about to take the Perseverance directly at that flagship. I am going to ram it. Before I do this, I want you to know something. I was asleep for 10,000 years. I thought I would never see my people again. I thought we were dead. But we are alive, and we are here, and we are not going to accept defeat. Minho heard the captain's words in his cockpit. He knew what they meant. Raymond was going to sacrifice herself. She was going to take the Perseverance on a suicide run directly into the flagship. No, Minho said to himself. Then louder, he called out into the communication channel. Captain, wait. There has to be another way. But there was no other way. Everyone understood this. The flagship had to be stopped. If the Karos continued firing with that gravitic weapon, the entire coalition fleet would be destroyed. Thousands more would die. The Perseverance began to accelerate toward the Karos flagship. Minho could see it on the tactical display. The human capital ship was moving at full speed, directly toward the massive enemy vessel. Every weapon system on the Karos ship turned toward it, trying to destroy it before it could make contact. The Perseverance was hit multiple times, but its shields held. Raymond pushed the throttle to maximum. The ship picked up more speed. The distance between the two vessels decreased rapidly. 100 kilometers, 50 kilometers, 20 kilometers. At the exact moment of collision, Raymond opened one final communication channel. Her voice was clear and steady, as if she was simply making a routine report. I am Captain Raymond of the Human Defense Force. I am doing this so that my people can live. I am doing this so that the galaxy understands what humanity is. We are not creatures that surrender. We are not creatures that accept extinction. We are creatures that fight until the very end. We are creatures that sacrifice everything for those we believe in. This is what we are. This is what we have always been. The Perseverance collided with the Karos flagship at incredible speed. The impact created a flash of light that could be seen from light years away. Both ships erupted in catastrophic explosions. When the light finally faded, both vessels were gone. The Karos flagship had been destroyed. But so had the Perseverance. Across the entire coalition fleet, a moment of silence fell. Every being, human and Valorian and Morphean and member of every other species, paused to acknowledge what had just happened. A leader had sacrificed herself to save her people. But that sacrifice was not in vain. With the flagship destroyed, the Karos fleet lost its coordination. The gravitic weapon system was gone. The massive firepower that had been cutting through the coalition defenses was silenced. The Karos forces, suddenly without central command, began to fall apart. Minho's squadron, along with hundreds of other fighters, launched a coordinated assault on the disorganized Karos fleet. One by one, Karos ships began to explode. The tide of battle was turning. The coalition forces, inspired by Raymond's sacrifice, began to push back harder. By the end of the day, the Karos fleet was in full retreat. Hundreds of ships were destroyed or crippled. The remaining Karos vessels jumped to hyperspace and fled, leaving behind the wreckage of their invasion force. The Battle of the Kepler Expanse was over. The coalition had won. But the victory had come at a terrible cost. 3,000 coalition soldiers had died, and Captain Raymond was among the fallen. As the battle ended and the casualties began to be counted, Dr. Haywan stood in the main command center of the Valorian flagship, looking at the empty tactical display where Raymond's ship had been. Tears ran down her face. She had known Raymond for only 3 months. But in those 3 months, she had come to understand why the Precursors had feared this species. Humanity did not simply fight. They sacrificed. They endured. They were willing to give everything for those around them. They would not be conquered. They could not be broken. They were, in every sense of the word, unforgettable.